Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sunday Live number 175. I think it's 175 today. My voice sounds exceptionally low this morning. Happy Father's Day. What's up to all you dads? All you dads and all those with dads out there. How's everybody doing? New mug. Actually, this isn't a new mug. It's kind of a cool mug. I bought this in Nashville. Tools of the Trade. I bought it probably 9 years ago, I think, in Nashville. And it kind of migrated from home to here. So that's why you've never seen it. Or I think it's been here for a while. But anyways, we got here. Michael from PEI. What's up? And Chef Jeff. More guitars. Good to see you all. Good to see you. Good to see you. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about today. The pickup video, put up the pickup video right after last week's Sunday Live. That's the only video I got out this week. And it was like 2 hours after this, Sunday Live. But I did make other videos this week. I just wasn't able to release them because they're kind of for new things that are coming out. And nonetheless, I finished a couple other ones this week that are dropping tomorrow and the next day and stuff. So they're videos about pedals and things. You know how I do that. Who's here in the super duper chat? It's Lithium St. Anne's Guitar Shop. What's up? Do I say that right? Is it Lithium? Do you cringe every time I say that? Lithium? Lithium? Lithium. Help me with the pronunciation. Have a beer on us. The festivals have started to book for 2022. We owe a great debt to the scientists who developed the vaccines. I agree. I'm all about science. They're flying helicopters on Mars with 1% of the atmosphere of Earth now, because the scientists are in charge up there on Mars. Out there. I like science. I'm a big Carl Sagan fan. My favorite book is The Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan. If you've read that one, what a great book that is. He was the quintessential scientist, wasn't he? Those EVH riffs were stuck in my head for days. They were stuck in my head for days too. And I wanted to listen to other music. No, I love it, Eddie. You know I do. But yeah, it was a lot of Van Halen all at once. I was like, okay, I need to do something else for a minute. So I actually have a video coming out for this pedal tomorrow. And it's much more of a John Mayer sort of affair. And so is the music that I came up with for it. So this is a fun one. It's a take on a Screamer, but it's got some voicing options that are really nice. So it's really nice pedal, actually. Sounds great if you're looking for something like that. It's amazing how if you reduce the compression or cut the mids a little bit on a Screamer type pedal, it just changes the whole thing. Like, it sounds like a different pedal. So it's neat to have all the options in one pedal. I better put on these because I need them. Mike says, sorry, Pete, I could not watch today, but next time. Well, you're here, so at least you saw the very beginning. Did you have a favorite EVH pickup? Well, let's talk about it. Thanks for the comment on my new haircut. It was getting too out of control. I just felt like I gotta, not the pickups, but the haircut. I felt like I had to, the pickups too, that was pretty out of control. No, I just needed something where I didn't look in the mirror at the end of the day and go like, you look like shit right now. I got tired of feeling that way. So it's a funny thing about long hair. It's just, it's like you get long, it gets longer and it can look just awful when it looks bad, especially as you get older, right? Pain in the ass. So I just feel better now. Let's come back to the pickups. John Hutchinson is up there in the, interesting question. He's up there in the super chat. He says, talk about John Suhr's hi-fi system, getting back to vinyl and contemplating a turntable. He'd have to tell you what these speakers are he's got, but he's got some kind of, I think they're, if you were to get them brand new retail, they're like 16 grand a pair or something. They're crazy. They're really amazing sounding. He got a deal on them from somebody that was selling used, I think, or something. Some guy that's super hi-fi, in that world. But they sound amazing, man. I mean, whatever's going on with them, they sound like, just unbelievable. And, now he's got the bugs. So I think next he's got to get a good amp and all that, because he's using kind of a typical sort of amplifier right now and stuff. So But I couldn't tell you who the manufacturer is. Very nice though. The pickups. Let's talk about the pickups. So, yeah, I have this newfound love for Alnico 2 pickups now, which, just kind of for me, for like my sound and stuff, I'm realizing that the top end is really nice. And the 4 that's in a Thornbucker is already going that way from a 5. They're a little warmer. And then the 2 just goes even further that way. So I'm really just realizing that, especially with the dirty, slightly vicious old Marshall sound, they just really help to kind of smooth out this upper mid or treble peak. They've just got a more muted top end that sounds really nice on the ears when you're dealing with that much drive and stuff. So I'm really liking them. So I liked a lot of the Alnico 2. I mean, from the 78 to the Rewind Electric to the I really like the Pasadena White too from Pariah. I thought it was great, and I thought the Thornbucker Alnico 2 was awesome. It was only, it was one of the lower powered. It was a 53 millimeter, the only 53 millimeter pickup we had in the shootout, which doesn't, kind of neither here nor there, but it was about 8.6K. If you wound it, if it was a 50 millimeter, it'd probably be 8.3 or 8.4, something like that. So, kind of a typical medium wind PAF, not a hot wind PAF. And I think we would have to wind it up to 9K for it to sound really great for that particular tone. But it did sound great, and it's for Page or Free or tones like that. I felt like it was there all day long, like a really great, and that's partly due to our wind, and it's probably a little different than everything else that was in the shootout. So anyway, stay tuned for that because I'm really interested. We're going to mess around with the wind a little bit more, and we will come up with something that'll probably be some sort of new thing, but not mess around with the wind, the actual wind and the way it's wound, just the amount of turns, so that it ends up being, somewhere around 9K or something like that. I'm really excited to play with that and see what we come up with. But as far as ones in the shootout for that particular sound, like for the Van Halen thing, I really like the I thought the Pariah pickups were really terrific. They were all great. I mean, there's a lot of different ones there, but for the Alnico 2 one, I really liked the Pariah. I liked them all though. The 78 was great too. A lot of that's been a mainstay for a long time. The Rewind Electric, really great. For the A5s, I mean, I kind of they're cool too, but it's just like, this is like tweaking my ear a little bit towards the A2s. That's what that test did for me. I learned a lot doing it, but I really like the VH2 from Bare Knuckle. I thought it was just a really great sounding pickup and kind of even overall. In the same way, I actually thought the Thornbucker with the A2 was right there too. I thought both those pickups sounded really good to me. So a whole bunch of things there. The Mighty Mite, the vintage Mighty Mite was awesome for the Super Distortion thing. And all the Super Distortion variants I thought were pretty good, really, including just the DiMarzio in the Destroyer. And a lot of people mentioned they really like the sound of those TV Jones pickups that came in my Destroyer when I got it. And I would have to agree with that. I thought the TV Jones sounded terrific. They'll stay on that guitar, I think. They just sound really good overall, just great sounding guitar. Pentatonic Prancer says, thanks so much for taking the time to do the shootout. The Pariah and Electric Rewinds surprised me how great they sounded. Yeah, and the DiMarzio SD is it. Certainly for that, for You Really Got Me or whatever, that's the sound, right? I mean, it just has that sound where it's just pushing the amp the right way and stuff and just sounds super cool. So thanks for doing the super duper chat. There's another one from More Guitars. If given the choice for your next live rig, would you use amp shields to control stage and no in-ear monitors? Yeah, I mean, I would actually. I think it works great. Like, you can turn up the amp as loud as you want, and I was sort of surprised how, like, Steve Stevens, I might have mentioned before, was playing with his band Deadland Ritual, and I heard him with a 100-watt amp and a 50-watt amp just cranked with those plexi panels in front, and I could stand right in front of them. I was standing on, like, when they were rehearsing close to here, and I went to rehearsal and stuff, and it sounded amazing with just the plexi right in front of the cabs, cranked right up, and it just diffused through the room really nice and doesn't take your ears out and beam and all that. And I thought it'd probably sound weird, but it kind of doesn't. It just sounded good. And I know Joe Bonham also likes it. I mean, for me, especially, you know, getting older and stuff, it's like I do worry about my ears. I hate using in-ears, and but I still like some volume, just not too much. And it seems to be a great way to get there and kind of be able to crank up an old amp and or a new amp, but you know, an amp that wants to be loud in order to get in the zone. So surprising how, I don't know, you would think putting a piece of plexiglass in front of it and then would sound weird, but it kind of doesn't. It just sort of sounds good. So kind of neat. Oh wow, Matt's going to see Foo Fighters. That's cool. How exciting to go to a show, right? Where are you in the super chat here, Matt? I'm trying to light up your super chat and I don't see you. But anyway, Matt Lipschultz says, going off to Madison Square Garden to see Dave Grohl play through your amp. Big rock shows are officially back. It's true, yeah. Well, that'll be fun, dude. Enjoy yourself. Oh, there you are. Let's see, enjoy yourself. That's great. Let us know how it was next week. That should be a fun kind of celebratory night. Able to go to a show and enjoy some loud rock and roll in a concert setting. Todd says, are ceramic pickups known to be bassy? They have a you can hear it in the video where I play them actually, and some people even commented like it sounded like too much low end when I was playing. I think you really got me with the Destroyer. But keep in mind, in a in a studio setting, you could low pass all that stuff and clean it up and stuff like that. Like I wasn't doing that stuff. So but yeah, they do kind of tend to have they have a big broad sound to me. That's what a ceramic magnet sounds like. Just this big full crunch, you know, super distortion. Anyway, you can hear it in the video. I mean, it's less of a sort of mid-range kind of focus and a little bit more just this big, you know, big thing. And I'm sure Jimmy would agree if he was here to talk with us. Yeah. John says he's always been an A2 guy, and that video confirmed it. Yeah, I've got A2s in a couple guitars. Like my Scala has A2 arcanes in it. My old wine red Les Paul that I used to play with Chris Cornell, I haven't really used it much since then, a long time ago, but that guitar has antiquities, so that's A2s. I remember really liking the Alnico 2 Pro single coils from Seymour Duncan, so I've got a set of those still around here somewhere. They're not in a guitar right now, but those were pretty cool pickups. Yeah. To me, the DiMarzio ST sounded best in that shootout. Well, it really works for that sound, you know, for at least the first album sounds, you know. Not so much for the later tones, I don't think, but for the first album. By the time we get to the Fair Warning period, it's interesting because who knows what was going on then, you know. Could have been a lot of different things. You know, I don't even know what, I mean, it's hard to say exactly what guitars he was. I just started to realize, like, you see him pictured with a lot of guitars, and then, like, you guys see that video, like, great video of Eddie Van Halen playing in 5150, playing the riff from Amsterdam, but in like 1986. Did you see that video? It was really cool. I loved watching it because I think I've told the story before about where I watched him play right in front of me, and that's exactly what it was like. So you see it in that video where he's playing. You can find it on YouTube, where look for 1986 Eddie Van Halen Amsterdam, and it'll pop up. He's there in the studio, and he plays the whole thing almost like he just keeps going, you know, and he's so stoked while he's playing it, and the rhythm's amazing, and you're just like watching it going like, yeah, that is so cool. Like he's just there playing part right in front of you and kind of performing the whole thing as a composition, you know, and it's so great. But that's exactly like what he played like, even with one person in the room watching him. He'd just play the whole thing, show you, like, and he was stoked on it. Like, check this out. And then it goes here, and then it goes here, and then he performs the whole thing. Anyway, that video is so cool. But my original point was, he's playing some Charvel in the video, right? And what was that guitar like? You know, just like, and so we just don't, you know, he could have used that guitar on records. Maybe that was the whole guitar on some record, and we don't know, you know, because there's no photos from Probably not, but but it could be we're on a song or two. So we just don't know. And I guess the purpose of that video I made was just to try a bunch of these different pickups, and then you go, well, across the board, I kind of like that one or whatever, even though it might not be the exact right sound for. I mean, you're playing your music anyway, probably, or different music, different songs from different people, and so it's like unless you're in a Van Halen cover band, and that's all you're doing, it should be more about I really like the tone of that one, within this sort of Van Halen video context. So, anyways, Braxall says, when you did your Marshall 50 watt on the quad Cortex, are you going to share it? I've never shared anything yet. I guess I could maybe get into that, sharing a couple things like some vintage amps and stuff. I'll think about that, about doing a couple of things for the quad Cortex kind of public thing, I've been listening to Five for Fighting. You look a lot like an epic rock star in the Easy Tonight video. Yes, the Paradise Cove Pier, shot out on the pier. I remember that day. It's a long time ago. It's 20 years ago. Hope to see the AC30 and the amps in the zone. Yeah, definitely. There's a couple amps that Dave Friedman actually got into his shop for repair that are super cool that I'm going to see if I can do an amps in the zone on, but they're old vintage. It's an old vintage, super old Sound City and a super old high watt with the original logo, which is really wacky. You've probably never seen it. I've only seen a couple with this logo. And anyway, it's just, it's really neat. I feel like there's like a shadow in front of my face here. I'm trying to figure out where that's coming from. This giant light, shadow. Anyways, coffee break. Anyways, I really want to do a little amps in the zone on this super old. Like I thought I could just record a track with the Sound City and the high watt being the only amps. Maybe incorporate a pedal or two and push them because they're just so cool. They're like really, really cool. So I'm going to see if I can do that, as well as, you're right, I should do the AC31 finally, right? Kevin is there in the super duper chat. He says, in your experience, how close does running the latest modelers and plugins through studio monitors come to the experience of playing through the real thing through real amps? I mean, it can be really close. It's still not. I mean, I do have, I've got the Axe here, I've got the Helix, I've got the Quad Cortex, and I love playing through them, and I can use them, and it's great. There's still just something about playing through the amps, through the mic cab in the other room. I don't know. It's just a thing where it just sounds. I don't know. There's the whole experience is being able to go up and turn the knob and, like whatever, get a little more treble. And then it's like change the, I don't know. It's just like the whole thing is tough to replicate. I just think the whole experience is maybe tough to replicate with, a modeler. But when you're in the zone and you're playing a part and you got a good sound dialed up on the modeler and the drums are playing and you're sitting there playing, tracking or whatever, it's like, it's also really good. So, it's more about, if we're getting really picky, I mean, I love the amps and I love still doing that and stuff, but it should be more, I think, about the music anyway, at the end of the day, like what you come up with this stuff. My friend Quist, he's a YouTube guy. You guys have probably seen him. He just uses a good old Axe FX. That's like an old, I think it's an Ultra. It's not even the new Axe FX 3 or anything. And he does all his videos with that thing, or most of them, I think. And, he's a great guitar player and he just plays really cool stuff. And it's more about his content, his music and his musicality and stuff. So there's the two sides to the coin, I don't know. That's sort of a non-answer, I guess. But John said in the pickup shootout, thank you for Kevin for doing the super chat as well. Appreciate it. The hotter pickup sounded best with the fair warning stuff. Yeah, the hotter A5 or sorry, A2, like the 14K, they really work well for that stuff. And even probably a JB, which we didn't include, but a JB, I guess is supposed to be a different whine, but it's a similar, there's like 14K or whatever, right? A5 versus an A2 custom. I've owned both and had them in guitars back in the 80s. I remember having both a JB and a custom. I don't, they were more similar than different, probably, in my memory. At least in their perceived output and stuff. So, Jimmy Jack Jones is up there in the super chat. Where are you there? Have your Thornbucker pickups and love them. Awesome. But I didn't set up coil splits. Do you use that sound much? I do. On my signature guitar, I use the split both coils position a lot. That's probably the one I use the most. Sometimes I use the neck single split. But both pickups split sounds great together in a double humbucker setup, I think. Really cool. Like, it's a great, I probably enjoy it just as much as a Strat position 2 or whatever. How did you find your black backs, and how would you recommend shopping? I think I found them on, I think it was like a Craigslist thing, and somebody sent me an email. So it was just a local sale where somebody had them. They didn't want to ship them, and they were local. And somebody sent me an email and said, "Hey, I know you like Old Celestians. Like, I saw this ad. Check it out." And they were down in Orange County, and I just drove down and picked them up from the guy. So if you, keep your ear to the ground, you can find them. If you kind of look hard enough. And then I bought another cabinet. So now I have 8 of them, I guess, because I have a Repro B cabinet that was made by the Blockhead guys. And it's got currently 3 G12M 75 hertz and then a 1973 G12M 55 hertz, the bass cone version in one corner. And so that cabinet's really cool, and I can blend those speakers or mix them or whatever. But also, I have my old Marshall cab in the other room mic'd up right now, and that one just came with those speakers, and it's G12M 75 hertz. So that was, I just found a good deal on a cabinet. It was from a pawn shop, actually. There was a pawn shop that had like a ton of cabinets that somebody had left there, including and some old amps, and they'd been there for like 18 years or something. The guy finally just cleared it all out, kind of interesting. There's G12H 30s, G12M 25s, multiple cabinets, probably 6 cabinets or something. And I felt like, oh, score. Like, this is one of these things that doesn't, it rarely happens, like those kinds of deals, I keep looking at my old camera, which is still mounted over here, and I've realized that this is the camera up here now, which looks the best, right, out of any of the ones that I've had in here, I think. So much better. Thanks for the recommendation, because I learn things from you guys all the time, but it's one of those Logitech 9 something or other, 900 and whatever cameras that is really nice. Just easy. I like easy. Can you talk in depth? Let's see, Michael in the super chat. Can you talk in depth about the difference between 50 millimeter and 53 millimeter spacing when installing on a Strat type guitar? Just get the 53. It really was an improvement, I think, back in the day when they came up with that spacing. It was definitely an improvement over, the 50 Gibson, spacing, 50 millimeter spacing. Definitely an improvement. I wouldn't even hesitate to. I would just recommend getting the 53. It's easy. Even if you put it in slanted like the EVH thing, I realize the strings are right under the poles basically still. And then if it's just straight, they're right under the poles. So yeah, just get the 53. It's better. That said, you're okay with the narrower one too. I've never directly AB'd like the same version in a Strat and been like, okay, how much does the volume drop on the outer 2 strings or anything like that? Eric says I think that's right. The JB is more like 16K. Is that right? I think that's actually right. The JB ohms or whatever, 16K, right? Let's look at the spec of the Seymour Duncan JB. Seymour Duncan JB. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. It'll tell us on there. I'm gonna go 5. Choose an option. Bridge. Alnico 5. Oh yeah, it is, isn't it? 16.6K. Was it always that hot? God, I always thought. I guess that's right. I just sometimes I forget. Yeah, interesting. I know that doesn't necessarily equate to output exactly, but anyways. Yeah. Arthur says up there in the super chat, just showing that support for rocking and rolling. Also wondering if you're going to start up those 5-minute lessons. Those were always so random and cool. You know, I put up that one, the sort of Van Halen themed one, right before I did the pickup video, like a day or two before, and it was about the tuning the B string slightly flat and all that. And I thought, why didn't I call this a 5-minute lesson? Because it is basically. But yeah, I've come to realize, like, that video, I put it out and it has more views than the pickup video. You know, it actually has like 50,000 views, and it got them really quickly. And it's like, we need to remember sometimes as like YouTube people that sometimes those quick, concise one idea or concept that you can do within like 5 minutes is a really cool idea for a video. These epic long videos that take so much effort to make, which are cool, you know, but you don't always have to do that. You know, sometimes it's because I was just going to include that as part of the pickup video. And then I thought, this is too much. This doesn't really have anything to do with the pickups and stuff like that. It's a separate thing. So just make a separate video out of it. I actually did it the day that we were doing the pickup shootout when we were filming. And I thought, I was waiting for one of the pickups to go in the guitar, and I had like 5 minutes, and I thought, just turn on the camera and show this tuning the B string thing. And that's when I filmed that. And then that makes a great video, you know. Content is tough to come up with sometimes, and you start to get these elaborate ideas about what you want to do, but sometimes it's like the simple idea is the right idea, and I just have to remember that, I think, you know, that it doesn't always have to be this epic adventure, because that was an epic adventure. Yeah. Well, we got 358 people online. What's it? What's the word? What's happening? What's up, good people? How are we all doing? Mountline says, with the Floyd Rose set against the body, how tight would you have the springs? I set it so that I can do a double stop bend, like say bend up the G string while I'm holding the B, or even just a single string bend, and the bridge won't lift. If I maybe do a minor third, it maybe starts to lift just a little, you know? So that's about how I set it, so that it's like, you know, in standard tuning, or say you're tuned to E flat, I can do a bend on the G and it won't pull the bridge. That's how I do it. Just set the springs, whether you're using 2 or 3 or whatever you're doing, you know, it depends on the tension of the springs and stuff, but that's about how I do it. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Troy says he's going to make bad TikToks. I like that idea. I don't have a TikTok account. I've avoided, but I know there's some guitar players on there. Maybe I need to. It's just one more thing. Oh God. But I've always said you need to keep ahead of the curve and look for the next thing. And if I don't do that, then I guess I miss out. FOMO. Social media FOMO. What else? L says, taking a break from practicing. I mean, I should be practicing too, but we're here talking about guitars and drinking coffee. No, I'll practice after. I will. Building a home studio, says Guitar Ninja. Do you recommend the Survey Active Load or the aux? I use them both. I use the aux actually for this kind of John Mayer flavored track. It just doesn't really sound like John Mayer, but I mean, that's the vibe I was going for, and it ends up sounding like me. But anyways, I did a kind of a mellow track, and I thought I want a kind of a different sound for this. So I used the PT100 clean channel with this cornerstone pedal that the video is about, running into it. And then I pulled up the 212 cabinet on the aux, which is supposedly kind of their boutique, like it's a G65, G12M 65, you know, that's the 65 watt Celestians in a closed back 212. That's the cab they modeled or whatever. And it's got a U67 and a 414, I think, are the mics I used. And I used the 414 off axis, and I added a little bit of echo in the aux, and it's just nice. It just sounded great. You can hear it in the video. It'll be out tomorrow. Actually, it's on Instagram already. If you've seen the link, the little post I put up on Instagram the other day with the kind of, you know, mellow melodic solo or whatever. sound really good. The reactive load is simpler and it's probably half the price, I think. You know, it's easier to kind of just dial up a sound. There's not a lot of options. There's no reverb or compression or any of that stuff in there. So it's more a plug and go thing, but it's great. You know, generally speaking, folks get the reactive load and they plug it in, they get it set up, they get it dialed in right, and they go like, wow, this thing's rocking. Like, this sounds great. Like, and that's kind of most of the reactions I hear from, especially like pro friends of mine. You know, I've got a couple friends that got hooked up with it. I mean, including Steve Stevens and Justin Derrico, you know, different people that get it and then they try it and they're like, this thing sounds amazing. You know, it's just so easy. And that's the thing about it. You can just dial up a cabinet in it real quick. It sounds good. You know, you can put some effects on in your DAW if you want a little reverb or whatever. It's right there, you know. When the aux is a bit, you know, it's just more with its app, which is really beautiful, you know, the integrated app and everything, but it's just more. It's more, there's more stuff in there and everything. And it's the one limitation, the only thing is with the aux is that you can't change the impulse responses or the cabinet modeling. I mean, there's a whole slew of them in there. But if you want to do IRs, you can bypass them and then do them in the computer if you want to. Just take the output of the aux and then do them maybe on the channel in your DAW or whatever using an IR loader if you want to try some different ones, you know. So those are the factors you have to weigh: the cost, the amount of features. You know, do you want? I mean, the effects in the aux are really fun. The you know, the delay, the play reverb's awesome. The 1176, the ability to EQ. You know, you got nice EQ in there. Blending mics, room mics. I mean, all these options are, you know, they're kind of different devices, really, in a way. Like when you think about that, you know, the aux would probably, you know, be more like the aux are one of the 2 notes units. Which one, you know? Because they're a little more like with all that full featured suite of software. The Sur is more a plug and play load speaker simulator. That's it, you know, and that might be great for some people and all they need. Just depends. Michael asking about the string spacing thing again with humbuckers. Does the spacing affect output? Should I compensate for that when I'm ordering? I mean, I would just get in a Strat, I would just get the 53 and then don't worry about it beyond that. As far as output goes, like, I guess that's the fear, is that you know, the string isn't directly over the pole piece and then it's going to be a little quieter or something, which is probably a thing, you know. I've never really tested it, and like, it'd be interesting to listen to one string on a pickup if you could just move the pickup under the string and then hear if the string is right under the pole piece or maybe just catching the edge, if it makes much of a difference. I don't know. And definitely the height of a pickup really matters. I mean, it's like, you know, how close that pole piece is matters. So I would think that if it's drifting too far out of the realm of being over it, it's probably makes a difference too. And I've just always, ever since 53 millimeter pickups came out in a Strat style, I just go with that, you know. In you know, the Thornbuckers that come in my signature guitar in the bridge is a 53 because it'll perfectly line up under the strings, and that's just, you know. So how does it compare to speaker mix? Like an aux compare to speaker mix? Speaker Mix Pro is really cool. And you could use it with a Sur reactive load and get probably close to most of the features that you would find in like the room mics and stuff in an aux. So they make a good companion, and I like Speaker Mix Pro. I did a video on it. You know, that's a good way to go too. There's just all these options. I don't know. The Speaker Mix Pro doesn't have a compressor or you know, a delay in it or mod. So with an aux, you get all those things, but it's sort of similar in some regards to its operation with a fader based kind of mixer, room mics, which sound really good in Speaker Mix Pro. So there's those things, you know, there's those things. Joe's saying they don't make a difference sound wise, 50 or 53. Yeah, I don't think the tone of the pickup would change, like, really at all. It's just maybe the perceived volume, or might, you know, if a string gets up outside the, you know, I mean, people used 50s in you know, think about going back to the 70s. It was like, you know, Dave Murray from Iron Maiden had, you know, humbuckers in his DiMarzios or whatever in his Strat. you know, obviously Eddie Van Halen with the slant, he compensated for it that way. Lots of other players, you know. So, you know, and lots of great records were made with pickups like that. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, but I would just say the 53 is probably better, you know, with its lining. Ideally, you want things to line up right over the pole pieces. Loot 89 says, found what I think will work for the PA in the garage for vocals and an instrument or two. Didn't use your affiliate link. That's okay. So here's the coffee fund. Thank you. I appreciate it. Scotch fund. I'm avoiding Scotch these days. Went with the EV 30M over the Bose. Cool, man. Whatever works, you know. That sounds good. EV makes good stuff. And thank you for doing the super chat. I appreciate it. Here's one more, actually. So you guys are too kind this morning. Thank you very much for doing the super chat. Steve says, got my Frankie relic yesterday from Anderton's, ordered in November and back to October at one point, but here now, plays great. Thanks a ton of work in just there's a ton, sorry, of work in just a paint job. Yeah, I wonder how they do the paint job. I'd love to see how they do it, like at the factory, like how they got it down to be such a because they're obviously making thousands of these things, right? But it is a really fun guitar, isn't it? And I thought it sounded really good in my pickup shootout. I saw Andy Wood got one too, and he did a Van Halen gig. I think he's got a sort of Steel Panther style band that he does sometimes. And I saw he played a bunch of Van Halen the other day at a gig with that guitar. So this is the things I saw on social media. Yeah. Let's see. Corey says, have you decided to keep any specific pickup in your black and white? I think I don't know yet. I'm still thinking about that. I haven't decided. Like I was saying, I really like that Pasadena white from Pariah. Really, really cool. So then what's the deal with the angled bridge pickup? Well, Eddie's original concept was to it's easiest to show you. His original concept, and you know, probably not a lot of people thought about this before, but this is where he was like, you know, he thought about stuff like this. And this is cool. His idea was that if he angled the bridge pickup, that the edge of this pole would catch the E string, and the edge of this pole on the slug coil would catch the high E, right? Because you angle the pickup, and it kind of then, you know, and sort of, you know, also matches the tilt of a Strat, right? But you can see how that's sort of the case, right? This is a standard 50 millimeter, and with the angle, the screw coil catches the low E, and the slug coil catches the high E, and then the rest just kind of balance out. And so that's, Eddie was smart, you know, when it came to stuff like that. Pretty cool, right? He was an interesting dude. As far as like, why did they angle the pickups on a Strat or a Tele back in the day? That's a good question. You know, it's an interesting. You know, it's hard to say. I always thought it was kind of interesting how Jakey Lee angled his single coils the other way. You know, so that the bass side was, you know, more towards the bridge. And then he had the humbucker straight, right? Kind of interesting how he did that, you know, and it sort of makes sense in a way, because it, like, you get a little less energy on the bass strings when it's angled like that, and a little less woof. Pretty neat. I mean, I wonder if, you know, it's interesting where that came from. But what have you learned from mixing your own tracks? That's an interesting question. Well, you know, with the demos are really good mix practice, because I got to do it fast, and I don't spend too much time on it, and so it's good and fast. You know, what have I learned? I have a template that I work in, and using that template really helps me to go quickly. So that's one thing. Like, organizing your sessions is good. I've got sends on my template that go to 2 different delays, as well as a room reverb, as well as like a pitch thing, kind of like the Eventide sort of detune. And so I could dial in any one of those really quickly, and that just, my template has all that in it. And then on the returns on one side, there's those effects. So if I need to get a stereo delay or a mono, more memory man style delay, I can dial that up super quick dial up a reverb really quick. You know, I know that like when guys like Chris Lord-Alge mix and stuff, everything's kind of set. He basically gets his assistant to set up a mix. And when he comes in, he just sort of pulls the faders up and all the stuff is mapped on his board. So every time that dude does a mix, it's like the snares are where the snare is supposed to be. The you know, the everything's bust the same. Like it doesn't matter the band, the song, it all, you know, and the as I understand it, the compressors and everything, the all the when you see his studio, all the outboard, nothing changes as far as the settings go. Like this is the compressor that's on the snare. There's this consistency thing. So you know, he mixes very fast. He's got his, you know, certain delays. I'm sure he does the delay times and all that and dials that in for the different songs. Like if you need a certain quarter note delay on a vocal or whatever, you know. But that kind of consistency, like having everything kind of mapped and not really tweaking it very much from mix to mix to mix is a way to work quickly. It's not right for everything, obviously, you know, but that's one thing that I've learned how to do. Now, EQ stuff, like learning how to like high pass stuff, you know, take the unnecessarily low end out of most instruments except for like bass and kick drum and certainly acoustic guitars and vocals and electric guitars. Many times, you know, you want a high pass stuff, which means that you're going to shelve all the low end out below a certain point, and it just cleans up the mix because there's this rumble stuff that happens in everything, you know, when you're miking things and you're picking up all this extra low end, and it just ends up clouding up. It's a cumulative effect across the mix as you pile more and more tracks in your session. So cleaning up that low end is really important. And then also watching the low end on a lot of instruments around the kind of like from 160 to 300 hertz, somewhere in there, doing dips on things and cleaning up that kind of, because there can be this, like on electric guitars, I find many times there's a lot of energy at like, you know, 190 or 200 or, you know, all the way up to 300 maybe. And on many guitar parts, you can just dip there and give it a little, you know, clean it out a little bit. And it just has this effect of not thinning out the guitar sound, but just clarifying the guitar sound without adding top end. So I tend to do that a lot. So those are some things that I've learned, you know, how to clarify, how to simplify, how to, you know, just make things move along a little bit easier. You know, I tend to think a little bit goes a long way, like when it comes to things like compression and, you know, EQ on the master bus and stuff. Things like that, you know. So I'll tend to use a couple different processors sometimes on the master bus just to even things out a little bit and stuff, and just, you know, an SSL compressor, a Waves plugin that is kind of an overall, you know, select mastering thing, and then the Brainworks Master Desk is generally the final thing. I'm just to, you know, put a limiter on the bus and, you know, just has an overall kind of, you know, little limiting, normalizing kind of effect. That's a lot of information. Have you tried the Marshall Studio Series amps yet? I tried one, yeah, and it's the one that you've got, the SV20 combo. It's awesome. I thought it was really good too. The one I tried, was at Friedman's Shop for Repair, and I just plugged into it for a second and listened to it, and I thought it sounded great. It had a very microphonic preamp too, which was probably the only thing wrong with it, and probably why the fella had sent it in for repair. But it did sound really good. It totally sounded like, yeah, that's a fun 4-hole Marshall, you know. I liked it. That's the only one I've tried though, the one you have, and I would agree it was cool. Oh, that's cool. See, this is great. Arthur says J.K. Lee said he did that based on Jimmy's setup. That's what he told me. That's cool, because of course Jimmy's guitar was strung the other way, and, you know, the bridge pickup was angled the other way, so it's pretty cool. Ben says Jake angled them the right way, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, a Strat, when you think about it, doesn't really need that extra treble on the, you know, I mean, you know, it would look dumb, but like if you took a Strat single coil and just straightened it out in the bridge, it would probably sound better, maybe, probably sound good. You know, it's not something I've ever seen anybody do. They just stick a humbucker in there instead, and that's straight. But, you know, a straight single coil would mess with our heads, right? But one thing you can do to a Strat, and so like an Atelli, like my pickups that are in my Ron Ellis pickups that are in my Telly, they have Alnico 3 poles for the top 3 strings and 5s. God, no, sorry, for the 5 poles for the low 2 or 3. I can't remember whether it's the top 3 or 4. I think it's just the plain strings on the Ron Ellis. The Seymour Duncan 5.2 does a similar thing with Alnico 2 poles for the high strings and Alnico 5 for the 2 low strings, which keeps them twangy and cool, you know. So it'd be really neat if you could do that on a humbucker, but you kind of can't. You know, the humbucker magnet is it goes underneath the pole pieces, so you can't really use a different magnet, I guess, for the different pole pieces. But unless somebody's tried that, I mean, what if there's a way to split a magnet in half and use 2 different kinds of magnets on, like, I don't know if that's even a possibility, but you know, using the different magnets in a single coil can help to warm up the high strings. Yeah. All right, what else we got here? Richard Fortis, my buddy Richard, has his bridge pickups reversed to get more bass on the lower strings and more highs on the higher strings. Really? Slanted, like, wouldn't it be the other way though? Because if you slant the high string, if you do it reversed, it's going to give you more, like a warmer treble and a twangier bass. So I'm not sure. What else we got here? Let's see. The front pickup in the Frankie sounds decent if you ever decide to hook it up. That's funny. I love that spirit of, yeah. So it's an actual working pickup, huh? Because I would have thought it wasn't, but that's interesting. That's pretty interesting. I had no idea. Thank you very much for sharing your time and knowledge of gear and tips. Do you have any gigs lined up later this year and are planning to do any changes on your board? The only gigs I have are with Classic Rock Show in January. So back to the UK that I know of right now. But, you know, this could change. So those are the only ones I know of. That's a good question. What was it like playing guitar alongside Stuart Smith? That guy's crazy good. He is crazy good. It was somewhat intimidating. I mean, you know, with Don's band, you're playing parts, generally speaking. So it's like to reproduce the parts on the record is, you know, I can do that, and Stuart would do that too. But then it'd be in between songs when you'd see Stuart play, like with all 4 fingers on his right hand and doing this crazy stuff. And how hard, one thing, he had a really, really intense work ethic. He would always be playing guitar, you know, backstage, just constantly practicing and warming up and stuff. And he's had a real dedication to, you know, getting better all the time and stuff. So he's a really terrific musician. Absolutely. Zabo Wabo, what are your thoughts on stacking overdrives? Any favorite combinations? I don't do it a lot, but I do sometimes use, like, one sound I use, for instance, on the Classic Rock tour. You could, on the song "Who Are You," you could go listen to me play it with, there's a video up on, like, a good, you know, pro shop video on YouTube. I'm using the Unit 67 on that, which is kind of a boost with a bit of compression in it, a bit of a dirty boost, and it's kicking the front of a Bogner Blue. So that was that sound. Another sound I'll use sometimes is like either the Unit 67 or a compressor kicking the front end of the Jan Ray. That's a nice sound too, for a sustaining, warm, kind of, you know, these are my not Marshall sounds, or not, you know, grindy, you know, plexi kinds of things. Although the Blue is kind of a plexi thing, but it was like a lower gain, you know, sort of. That was like my Pete Townsend impersonation, was the Bogner Blue into the clean channel of the PT15, set, you know, not for a lot of gain, the pedal, I mean, and then getting kicked a little bit with the compressor. And I know Pete used to use a Dynacomp a lot, so that's a thing, I think, you know, like a little bit of compression on the front end is kind of nice sometimes for the Who songs without too much overdrive. But so that's a couple different ways that I do it, but I don't do it a lot. I don't stack drives a lot, because generally if I'm using drive, it's amp drive. All my amps have nice overdrive channels. So what I will do is kick the front end of the amp with a, you know, drive, generally speaking, or boost. I like the you know, the Klon types. And, you know, I want to kind of mix it up. So maybe like, I love that Scream Honey pedal from CKK, which I have one of them here. So I might try one of those on my board as a solo boost. I really kind of miss having a Coco boost on my board. The mid boost from that is outstanding and just super fun for a lot of solos. So I'd really like to get one of those on my board. So finding space and stuff, maybe switching it up a little bit the next time I do any live stuff. Just, you know, we're always playing around, aren't we? Love your channel and the fan base, says Ryan. Thank you, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks for doing the super chat, you guys. Love your EVH video. If you and the boys are looking for some new tunes, my debut just released, Metallica, Pantera, Megadeth, Main Influences. Cool, man. Congratulations on putting an album out. That's fun. Always, you know, it's great to get your music out there and feel like, this is me. And then, you know, I don't know, it's just nice. Sort of establish yourself or whatever and feel like, here's my contribution. I like that feeling. Thank you again for the super chat. I appreciate it. John Matthews says, you're in the zone, and EVH videos inspired me to fire up my old 800 series non-master 87. Oh, cool. You got a rare one with a 4-input 800 series. Start with volume 1 at about 6. There's no better medium gain tone. That's it, pretty much. You know, you can put all the tone controls on 5 and boost and cut a little bit from there. And with that on 6, you've got your Angus Young all day long. That's good times. I agree. I agree. I agree. What else we got here? Eric Johnson says you could use 2 half-length magnets in a humbucker. Yeah, that might be. I mean, that's what I was thinking. Like, is that a thing? Has anybody ever really done that? Are we giving away ideas here that we should just be doing? I'm sure somebody must have tried that at some point, right? You know, it'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Okay. Sydney, BC. What's up there in Sydney? Hip Metal Works. Braxall's asking me again about the Marshall's 50 watt on the quad Cortex. Are you going to share it? That's just a, I guess I could share the preset. I mean, it's just a, I don't remember what I used for IRs. I don't remember if I used stock ones or I might have aftermarket ones in there. But anyway, I kind of answered that question. Just saying I might make some quad Cortex, you know, presets or whatever and share them one of these days. I know I always say stuff like that and then I never do, but maybe I'll surprise you all. Yeah, Arthur says when he met Jakey Lee at NAMM some years back, one of the only times I sort of fanboyed out. I know how that is. You meet people and you just kind of, you know, it's like sometimes you don't know what to say or whatever when you're, you know, that's normal though. That's just human, you know, especially when, you know, it's like when it's somebody that had a big effect on your childhood, that's when I find I get starstruck, you know, when it's somebody that I feel like really, when it's either somebody, generally not musicians, but like a person, you know, like, you know, anytime I've met somebody that's like a political figure or something that's like you're kind of like, I get more like starstruck around folks like that. If they're like really like, you know, somebody that changed the world or something like that, you know. But if it's that or a Beatle, you know, like when I met Ringo, I was pretty starstruck. You know, certainly Eddie Van Halen the first time, but he broke the ice right away, so that was cool. Then I got over that real quick. But when you meet these people that had an effect on your childhood, you know, they seem sort of like superheroes or something, right? And that's when I find I get a little starstruck. Is the Friedman Circom Pre any good? You know, that was a cool pedals. I like all Dave's pedals. I mean, I tried the Golden Pearl on something recently. I used it in a video. What video was it? It was for, I boosted with it and it sounded really great. The Golden Pearl was his sort of newer version of the old Naked Overdrive, which was a great pedal that's kind of a straight up ampy drive, no cut or anything in the lows, just sort of almost like a dirty boost drive. That's a great one. The Compre, I did a video for it. I just can't really remember the music I came up with and stuff. So sorry, but it was cool, as I remember. What brand of IRs did you say you favor? I use a bunch of different ones. You know, I'll go with the Celestians, or I'll go with the York. Generally speaking, those are I guess my favorites. You know, um, Yorks are really good, and Celestians are also really good. So, any tinnitus. How do you say that word? Not really. You know, um, the smallest. You know, I used to have more, and then it went away, which was really cool. I got lucky, I guess. But if I tour for, my ears will ring if I'm around loud cabs or whatever, or I do a gig or whatever. The ringing comes back pretty quick, but it tends to dissipate and go away. And it luckily never stuck around for. Now I did have it for back. I would say when I was touring with Chris Cornell, the first year or so, I sort of damaged this year. I think maybe a little with the amount of volume I was. We were on in-ears, and I was trying to. The stage volume was kind of loud, and I was trying to get the in-ears up above so that I could just hear my guitar clearly, and I had it panned left. So this year got a little toasty, but it seemed to improve after I just stopped that. And a couple 3 years went by, and then I felt like I don't think my ears ringing anymore like it used to. So I got really lucky, I guess, with that. And then I've always been really careful with in-ears since then. I always want to run them louder than I should if I have to use them, and then I have to kind of turn them down to the point where it's slightly not where I want them, And I'll tend to use the limiter on the pack a lot. Like, if I've got a pack that says, good tip. I mean, sound guys are like, oh, don't use that. Don't use that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use that. Because many times what people will do, like sometimes a singer will come up behind you and put their arm around you. Hey, what's going on? And then they like with their arm or something like that. And the volume, that's happened to me, where the volume goes on 10 because the singer or somebody else in the band like brushes by you or grabs your pack. They don't mean to do it, but they hit you, and in the heat of battle on stage, that volume goes all the way up. That's actually happened to me. Oh, fuck. And it's so loud, and it's awful. So the limiter will prevent that, and you just can't turn it up past like 5 on the pack. That's as loud as it'll get. And so I'll tend to turn that on as a safety mechanism, and then just try and get my mix. A couple. Oh, I think I already answered that one. A couple of tips are use the limiter, and then also I tend to like the high frequency boost on the pack. If I turn that on, they always in-ears sound a little woolly to me, and if I turn that on, it sounds better. And I don't think that's like loss of hearing. I think it's just because in-ears sort of suck. I don't know. This is an interesting trick Greenfly's talking about here. Tapping the bone of your skull behind your affected ear about 10 times with your middle and index finger. So I used to go like this and tap these sort of flaps on your ear right here. If you hold that, and then how do you do it? Like you kind of tap like that, but bone behind your ear. That's interesting. You kind of do that and you tap it, and it sort of works. It sort of dissipates try it if you've got if you've got the ringing, and see if it helps. I used to do this. So I cover my ear with one finger and then tap that finger. Looks hilarious, I'm sure. But give it a try and see if it helps. It seems to sort of just dip the sound of the ringing because I can remember doing that back when my ears would ring more. I'd heard that kind of works. Kind of weird, but Arthur says he's got 40% loss in left ear thanks to Kiss in the Hot on the Shade tour. Wow. That's the 90s, wasn't it? Or late 80s. Were you standing like too close to one of the PA or something, or stacks or something? Can be dangerous. Yeah. I'm stage crew. It works, says Greenfly. Yeah, it kind of does work. It's interesting. Dan says it cured his situation. What else we got here? Let's see. Standing too close to the cymbals killed me on a Halloween. Cymbals are like everybody bags on the guitar player, but I swear to God, the cymbals are they are a bad offender. I mean, I can just tell you from recording. When you get drums especially with a drummer that hits cymbals harder with loud cymbals, Crash Ride. It's like in the overheads, right? The overheads don't lie. I mean, they're just on top of the drum set. The snare drum's pretty friggin' loud, right? And sometimes when you're recording and you get a track and you got those overheads up, it's really difficult to turn them down enough to get, like the cymbals just take over the sound. You can hear a little bit on, okay, here's a video you can reference. My buddy Blair Cinta, who's an awesome drummer, and it sounded great, but we did this sort of Van Halen style track for a Warm audio vid I did recently for their preamps. I think I call it Capturing the VH Vibe or something. But if you watch that video and you listen to the drums in the video, because all he used was a kick mic, and I think he used 3 or 4 mics. That was it. And the main drum sound was coming out of a condenser mic and one overhead. So he didn't give me a snare mic. So I just had to work with what was there. But he was playing Crash Ride. And Blair's pretty sensitive about stuff like this. But normally, if we had done that take, I would have said, can you not hit the crash so hard? Because you can hear it in the song. It's a little... the crash just sort of like I had to get the overhead up to a certain level to make it sound good, and then I tried to EQ it like as much as I could and stuff, but the crash is the dominant thing you hear in the mix, unfortunately. And I'm talking like, listen to how loud the snare drum is, which we know is loud. A snare drum is loud, right? And then listen to the Crash Ride and how it just kind of is. I couldn't get it quite right with only the overhead, and that was picking up the snare too. It's just like the crash dominates the snare is what I'm saying, and kind of washes over the whole mix a little bit. So those crash cymbals are the loudest damn thing on the stage, I think. Kind of amazing when you look at like a dB meter with a tambourine. If you listen to a lot of old Beatles recordings and stuff, and you really focus on it, it's like, holy hell, the tambourine's the loudest thing in the mix, some tambourine overdub. But if you look at a dB meter of a tambourine, or I guess I've never really looked at one with a crash cymbal, Crash Ride or anything, but certainly with those percussion, like with the tambourine, it's like, oh my God, like the tambourine's like 108 dB, like, when you hit the impact. But it doesn't, it's like you don't register it the same as you do like a loud guitar chord or something for whatever reason, maybe because it's short in duration or something. But man, the spike of a tambourine is really loud. So it's kind of interesting. And I think these are the things that get us into trouble. I was talking about this with a friend the other day, how when you used to go sound check at clubs, as guitar players, we'd play and the sound guy would always be like, you need to turn down. But then the bass would play, and the bass would just be like absolutely massive, like tons of volume, but it doesn't hurt. Like bass, even when it's really loud, isn't this thing that, oh, that's fine, and be like, really? Because that bass is really loud, none of this stuff, like what hurts the ear when we're just playing individually, matters once the whole band kicks in and everything starts band masking and stuff. And then it's just like becomes the soup, right? If the guitar is turned way down in that, even that guitar that sounded loud in the ear, it's going to be unbalanced. So I don't know. I digress. But anyways, it's a funny thing. I've never heard of this. The Jam Pedal Tube Dreamer 88. You're just reminding me, the fellow from Jam Pedals contacted me a while ago, and he's got a pedal that he wants me to make a video of, and I need to email him back. Thank you. This is interesting. Third Power Mag Frag pickups. I've never heard of that. Third Power. Mix of different magnets. Yeah, somebody's got to have tried it, right? Putting it in a humbucker. Excuse me. I think I'm having acid reflux or something. I'm stuck between Axe-Fx 3 or Neural DSP Quad Cortex. The only thing holding me back on Axe-Fx is it doesn't capture amps or effects. It just depends on what you want to do. And, they're very different units. In an Axe-Fx 3 is a rack mount thing that you're going to have to get a foot pedal for and stuff, whereas the Quad Cortex is more of an all-in-one floor sort of processor. So right there, got to decide how you want to use it and what's the kind of the main way you want to use it. The touchscreen thing. I mean, there's a ton of, an Axe-Fx is a Swiss Army knife of guitar tone, with its extremely, I mean, like there's so much in there. I don't know why, honestly, you wouldn't have to, if you like the way it works in the operation. I mean, there's so many things in there, like it would seem redundant to go capture another Marshall and put it in there because there's already those in there, or another Vox, or there's so many options in there for amps and cabs and sounds that you kind of just go. People that get into the Axe-Fx world and they become devotees, they kind of just go that way and they're down that path and they get into that and they make their guitar tone life centered around that device, and I don't think they worry about capturing other devices too much and stuff. It does have the tone match stuff in it. So generally the way that they go about the whole capturing thing is more like start with a plexi or whatever, like that's in it, say a 50-watt Marshall or whatever. And now if you've got another 50-watt Marshall that you've got in your studio or something, you could record it and kind of capture that sound, maybe the line out direct sound of it, put it in there, put the tone match after the block and tone match it to the one that's in the Axe-Fx. So now they sound basically the same, and then you send that into an IR or whatever, and then you get very, very similar, close to what so they've got their own way of kind of going about it. There's no right or wrong, it's a tough one, to recommend like a I don't know. I never say this one or that one. It's just like, kind of can't. It's difficult. They're all great tools. Like I always say, it's like the Lexus or the Infinity or the BMW or they'll all get you there in style. It just depends which one seems to speak to you a little more, I think. If you can only buy one tube head, which one and why? Probably, it'd be either a PT100. Can I keep my reactive load too? Because then I've basically got everything I need with it. The PT15 it's tough for me to pick. I'd have to pick a PT15 or a PT100. If I can only have one amp, it would be one of my signature amps, because I know I can do everything I need to do with one of my signature amps. It's just the 15, one of these days we will have a sort of a middle ground with, a 50, and then that will be the one that I'll probably end up using for, just about everything. But my signature amp is, be it the I can't pick right now, but the 15 or the 100. If I've got one of those, I can basically do my job and could work for the rest of my career. Pariah says I may have something in the works for that magnet idea. That's cool. When it's ready to go, I will send you one. Awesome. I'd love to hear what that sounds like. Like a 5 on the low strings, on the low 2 or something, and then the 2 on the top strings, and a humbucker, kind of like a Duncan 5.2, but in a humbucker might be really, really interesting. Neat combo, I think. Yep, it's a cool idea. I think Travis says take the Subaru. Yeah, get the Subaru. Get the what's the or an Isuzu. What's the other one? Get an Isuzu, a Jaguar. Always in the shop. Look great. Always in the shop. Like most of my significant others. That was a joke. They've gone up in price since the, what are you guys talking about there? Stephen Douglas, Todd Roy. Sorry, I'm talking without thinking. Looking for other interesting topics. Jeff says that he lost a frequency in his left ear, stood too close to cymbals. I felt it go. Really? Wow. Like all at once. Wow. That's pretty wild. I've got a little dip. The last time I had it checked was a minute ago. I've got little dips around like, 4K and stuff, but they told me when I had my hearing tested that it wasn't outside the realm of normal for my age group, that it was pretty normal. So, yeah. If you could only keep or buy one tube head, which one and why? Oh, I already answered that. Sorry. It was my PT. Okay, I'm repeating myself. Yeah. Okay. I used to have compression earplugs. Those were great. I've never heard of that. There's all kinds of new hi-fi earplugs out there that you can get now that are sort of like cheaper than the West Tone ones and stuff that are molds, you know. And I've wanted to try some of them, but they're, to be honest, actually a lot of them are almost as expensive as just getting the molds. So, but I see them advertised, you know, on things like Instagram, hi-fi earplugs and stuff. Yeah. Jay Jones says AC/DC was the loudest band he's seen. I know AC/DC to this day are friggin' loud. Like they get really, really, really loud. Like, you know, they just are one of the loudest live bands out there. I think probably Van Halen on the 1984 tour was one of the louder shows I ever went to, but it was also because I was third row, kind of very close to the end on Mike's side. That's where I was, and it was loud. The PA, man, I remember this, the PA being in front of me and I remember feeling the wind off the PA, like a breeze off the air pressure coming at me off the PA, you know. And they started with Unchained, and I couldn't really tell what song it was. I remember that, just like, oh my God, you know, with Rudy Laren doing the intro. I remember it. I do. Yeah. Okay. BKKY saying, I've seen XFX 3-tone match videos. Seems this can kind of be like a capture. It's more like a match EQ kind of thing, where so the way that it works in an XFX, you know, let's say you've got an amp model, but it's pre-IR. So it's a full frequency, you know, the full thing that would sound gnarly if it was coming through speakers, like the distortion of without any speaker simulation, right? You can then, the tone match thing in the XFX can look at that sound and then, or listen to that sound, right? And then it can also listen to, let's say, you playing through a dirty Marshall into the thing. And it can compare the EQ differences between the two. It's just EQ, but it can compare the complex EQ differences between the two and generate a curve to match them. And so if you've got your 50-watt Marshall actual amp with a line out box, you know, load or whatever, but you're tapping it out with a line out box into the XFX, it can look at that sound and then also at the 50-watt Marshall model in the thing. You put a model in there and you dial the tone controls the same way and set it up theoretically the same as you would your amp, and it looks at the two. And I actually made a video about this in like 2011, I think, when Tone Match first came out, probably 10 years ago, where I tried to match the SL68 to the 100-watt plexi in the XFX at the time, and it worked pretty good. I mean, you go back and listen to it, you know, see, but that's the concept, where it's looking at two different similar things and just matching the EQ between them, one to the other, you know, the model to the real one. Any differences that are there, it'll even them out. Still not going to, you know, it's not going to even out dynamics or like cleanup or things like that, but, you know, the other things, but it's going to get the EQ there, and that goes a long way towards, you know, making two sounds sound really similar. And these are the things in an XFX, they do give you these tools that really help, you know. So yeah, cymbals at gig volume really are the worst. You know what might be interesting is having, I'm not a fan of electronic drums at all, but it might, drummers would hate me for saying this. My drummer friends would be like, just shut up. But what about like using like the Roland cymbals for cymbals, you know, like the samples or whatever, and then using maybe an acoustic maybe a regular hi-hat, you know, but like, what if you had for all the cymbals, if you had the electronic, you know, the Roland stuff or whatever, and then the drums were just acoustic drums. I bet that would sound great in a mix out front, you know, and also on stage would be really cool. Like, just as far as like the ability to, you know, to blend the cymbals in at the, I don't know, because these are things that people do in the studio where they, you know, like, I think Songs for the Deaf and maybe some other Queens of the Stone Age was done this way from what I understand, I've heard, but where they record the drums and then they go back and overdub the cymbals. So there's no cymbals on the drum tracks. And that way you can treat and compress the drums, the room mics, the overheads and everything without having this wash of crazy cymbals in the mics, right? And just kind of a cool way to go about it. Like, go back and just play the cymbals then on top of, and now you've got independent cymbal tracks that don't have any drums in them, and independent drum tracks with no cymbals in them. And you can kind of maximize the sounds of both. But a way to do that live might be not using actual crash cymbals, It would protect hearing and be like, I think it would go a long way towards reducing stage volume, actually, in many ways. I'm not really a fan of electronic drums on stage. I mean, I've tried to play gigs like that with drummers using, samples is one thing, but like the whole kit replaced with one of those like V drums or whatever, it feels so weird. But having the just the cymbals not be there would be an interesting thing, really interesting thing. Drummers would probably hate it. I don't know. Just ideas. This is where drummers look at me and go, why don't you just play an Axe Effects and I'll tell you what to use. Drummers don't like it when you they like, stay out of my business. Anyways, what else we got here? Let's see. Jack Collins is in Louisiana and he's saying hello. Thank you for keeping my gearhead sanity, says Ronnie. You bet, man. Absolutely. Yeah. The drummer of my old band hit the cymbals so hard they would look like the Death Star in a few rehearsals. Yeah. I remember doing a Chris Cornell's audition, and I remember he had this drummer come in, and the guy had played in Nine Inch Nails for a minute, and he was a young guy. I think he was from Australia, and he hit the cymbals so hard in the audition that he broke his crash cymbal like right away on like the second song. And I got to play with a lot of drummers when I was auditioning for Chris. I remember playing with like maybe 6 or 7 different drummers. He was listening to different people, and they would have, me and the bass player or other people stay, and then the different drummers would come in. And it was interesting to contrast playing the same songs. You're playing Spoon Man with like Chris and then like 3 or 4 different drummers. It was pretty cool. This one guy came in, and I remember he literally it's just insane how hard he was hitting the cymbals. And this was one indication of Chris's sense of humor. Was early on, he gave that guy a call back like right away. So we came back the next day, and that guy came back and played again. And that later, I sort of found out later that Chris was just he was just so crazy that I just wanted to see him do it again. I think the cymbal stand went flying over, and like a crash split in half, and it was unbelievable how hard this guy was hitting the drums and the cymbals. And Chris was just so he called him to come back the next day because it was fun, but way too much, But anyways, kind of funny. Yeah, that happened. Okay, what else? Pantera with Sepultura and Prong. That was loud. I bet it was. I bet. Nick says he's trying to decide whether to buy the Universal Audio aux or the Boss amp expander. Any experience on either? Well, I have tried both, yes. And I've got the aux, obviously it's up there. The Boss unit, I've avoided talking about it a lot, and I guess I might as well just clarify. I love Boss, and I'm a big fan of those guys, and I'm friends with the president, so I literally have Yoshi's number in my phone. I can text him right now and we could talk. He's a great guy, and I love that company, and they're great people and stuff. The tube amp expander has the ability to adjust the load, and you can change both the high rise and the low resonant peak via a couple of knobs on it. And the only thing that I know is that I have some concerns about the higher settings, especially of the low knob on it. And that's just from talking to tube amp people, from Aiken to Sir to Egnator to different people. And that's my only concern. Now, the lowest settings on it should be fine, but as you get up into the higher settings, I just have concerns personally. That's all about the load and what the way the amp is responding with the device. That's all. Maybe you'd be fine, but it's definitely a different thing, that it's presenting a different load to the amplifier than a speaker would. That's for sure. And you're sort of tuning the sound of the amp with the load. You don't normally do that with a speaker, right? Like you plug into a speaker cabinet and it's presenting a load to the cabinet, and there's an impedance curve that happens. But that is a thing that you don't really think about. You're more like, oh, I like vintage 30s, or I like greenbacks, or I like a closed back 412, or I like an open back 212, or whatever, right? But you don't think about the impedance curve, really. We never did, right? But there's a thing, and it changes a little bit depending on the speakers and the cabinet. But they all look sort of similar with this. Like if you look at it on a, you meter it out or whatever, you just go look at it. I don't know what the thing is, but I've seen the curves. If you look up guitar cabinet impedance curve, you're going to find the same thing over and over and over again, which is going to look like, I'll find a piece of paper here and a pen. I'll show you. And this is in ohms. No, it's not a pen, that's a grease pencil. What's that? How about a Sharpie? This is what an impedance curve looks like in ohms. There's going to be something that generates that looks like this. With on one end of the graph, there's going to be a resonant peak, and then it's going to have a high rise that kind of goes up like this and actually sort of tails off, sort of like that. And what that is I wish I was an amp tech, but this is like, the amp is sort of, I'm gonna mess this up, but it's sort of like unloaded at this peak and then comes back down, right? And this tends to happen at like, I don't know, 200 ohms or no, sorry. I'm going to totally screw this up. I can't quite. What the point is that this peak, if it doesn't look like this, and if this rises up and just kind of continues out like this, which can happen with certain load boxes. Where'd my pen go? If it looks like this, a lot of them look like this. I'm going to draw one more curve. A lot of them look like this, kind of a, looks like boobs. A lot of them will look like that, where it kind of goes up and then comes back down and does that. It's different than this, right? Okay, this. With a sharp resonant peak, comes back down and then rises up like that. This is what a lot of them will look like, from the aux to the two notes to the different ones, where there's kind of a low and then a high, and then it goes like this. Doesn't look exactly like what a true speaker impedance curve looks like, but still it's closer than what some other ones will look like, which is more like this situation. That second line. Okay. And what is kind of freaky is that what I'm told this situation is, this is like where it's rising up here and then doing this, and it's kind of like not loading as much at those frequencies, like, and then with this one, this is what an actual speaker looks like, right? And where it's like these super low frequencies where it comes up and comes back down right here, and then you go down here at like, 100 hertz down to 50 hertz down to 20 hertz or whatever, it's loaded completely, right? Whereas with this sort of situation, it rises up here and you get this unloaded situation down in the low end. And as I'm told, that was a real shit explanation of that whole thing because I'm not an amp tech, but I'm told, I do understand that that's supposed to be what you want to worry about, is that when it's rising up on the low end, and if there's no load, the amplifier is not seeing a load at that end. It's building up all this energy basically down there, and it's not loaded, and it can't dissipate that energy. And the super low frequencies, like 40 hertz or whatever, 50 hertz, if it's down there and it's unloaded, then the amp is like getting stressed in a way that it wouldn't if it was like getting dissipated and loaded to the speaker properly. That's that's my guitar player like layman speak, but it kind of makes sense. Basically, the transformer and the output of the amplifier like building up all this energy, and then it can't do anything with it like it normally would be able to with a cabinet. So this is what you want to avoid, I'm told, by amp guys. When the only thing is, I think, like, because this controversy has been going on forever. But the only thing is, we don't really know, like, you know, with like at what point and with, and amps are all different, you know, the specs and output transformers and stuff like that. But we don't really know maybe the kind of stress that, you know, an amplifier, any one given amplifier can take, right? So what you want to do is basically present it with what a speaker would normally do, you know, as far as, and then you at least, you know, you're safe basically, because that's what a speaker is designed to do, is dissipate that energy. But if you present it with a way different load, and maybe it's unloaded down there like 40 hertz or 50 hertz or whatever, and all this energy is built up in your amp's transformer, like, will it be okay or will it not be okay? Well, it's a little bit of an unknown, you know. And a lot of some of the guys I've talked to are like, yeah, I probably wouldn't, you know, my finished plexi or whatever, you know, because you can't get those transformers anymore, or your old, you know, bandmaster or whatever you're plugging in there, right? So long story short, I would recommend the curves that are furthest to the left on the switches on the Boss are pretty darn safe and really similar to kind of probably what the aux looks like, as well as the 2 notes and stuff. And I would just stick with those and not get too much into tuning the sound of your amplifier by turning those knobs to change the load. That's not something you would do with a speaker, you know. It's like, you can't even do that with speakers. It's just whatever the impedance curve of that speaker in that cabinet. Anyway, I've embarrassed myself enough with crap, but if there's any amp techs in them, maybe they can explain it a little bit better. But it's just you know, you just want to protect your amps. I love it when Pete gets this nerdy. It is pretty nerdy, but I'm pretty crap at explaining it. I wish I had a tech here that could describe it better, but it's about, it really comes down to the easiest way it's been described to me is your amplifier builds up all this energy and it needs to dissipate, right? Otherwise your amp's got blue balls. And you don't want that. So, which can happen if you've got not the proper, you know, not a proper load, the amp's not seeing a proper load from, you know, a speaker or whatever, and you're not using a proper, either resistive or a reactive load that's a proper, you know, reactive load. So you just want to be careful. That's all. That's my only concern. Other things about the Boss work great, like the, you know, the delay and the, you know, I find the reamp sounded pretty good and stuff. I would just recommend, as far as the load goes, that you use it the way I said, with the knobs all the way left. And then if you want different sounds or IRs or whatever, or EQ, you compensate using those things and not using the tuning the load. I don't want to get in trouble with anybody, like, you know, but that's just I also don't want to see people, you know, blow up their output transformers and stuff like that. That's my only concern. I tread carefully with this stuff. That's all. So we were talking about shows that Commodore Ballroom ever played there. I've played Commodore multiple times. Yeah, played there with Chris Cornell. I played there with 40 Foot Echo. I want to say I played there 3 times, but I can't remember what other show. I've seen a number of shows there too. I remember seeing Tom Morello there one night. It's a fun room, classic venue. I miss Vancouver. Sometimes I think I should just move there. I've always wanted to live there. Love the west coast of Canada, I really do. There's another super chat up there that I can't find. Oh, we see here T-Top. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. My board has the Kingsley Constable preamp, not a pedal I've tried, and all pedals go in front of that. Going in effect return to Marshall Origin. Oh, God. With the EVM 12L, too heavy. Suggestion, perhaps Neo speaker. An EVM 12L is a unique speaker. You know, you might find, I think there's some Neos that are designed to capture that sound. I'm trying to, maybe one of the Jensens. Because I think there's a Jensen Neo that I was reading about that is going for that EVM 12L thing. But I've never really been an EV guy. I'm a Celestion guy, and I really like the sound of the Celestion. The Neo creamback is great for a greenback, worn in greenback kind of thing, albeit very different than what you're talking about. The Neo Century, you know, you might want to look at for more of a kind of a all-around sort of, you know, I don't think it'll be quite in the vein of your 12L, but it still might be something you want to look at. But look at the Jensen too, because I believe they have one that's supposed to do the EV thing, sort of, but in a Neo, which would be neat because it's not nearly as heavy for sure. It's a very heavy speaker. Braxel saying, how would you capture your 50 watt Marshall if you only have an aux and captor X? Oops. On your quad. What? How would you capture your 50 watt Marshall if you only have an aux and a captor X on your quad cortex? Well, you would want to take the line out of the, like, just load the amp down with the either the aux or the captor X. You just use the captor X, I think, and don't add any speaker simulation. You just want the full range loaded down output into the quad cortex. That's it, pretty much. So you plug the guitar into the, it tells you on the screen on the cortex, right? But you plug your guitar into the quad cortex, then you take the send out of the quad cortex to the front of your amp. You take the speaker output of the amplifier and go into the captor X. You're going to take the line out of the captor X and go back into the capture input or whatever of the quad cortex. And that's it. Yeah, that's how you do it. And it just captures the sound of the head then. It'll show you, though, on the screen when you go to capture, it'll show you, it'll tell you what to plug in where. And normally, for most captures, where you include this cabinet sound and bake it into the sound or whatever, you're coming out of your amp into a cabinet and then maybe putting a mic on the cabinet and then running that either into a mic pre line out back into the quad cortex, or you're putting the mic on the cabinet, just plugging it right into the mic pre on the quad cortex, because you can do that on that unit. And then you're capturing the full sound. But in this case, instead, you're just going to take the line out of the captor X into the quad cortex, and it's going to capture just the direct amp sound. And then you can add an impulse response, or the built-in speaker sim impulse IRs or whatever that are in the quad cortex. Yeah. Do I have any business owning a Unit 67? That's up to you. BE100 Deluxe, play mellow to metal. And you got a room for me in Vancouver if everyone comes stay there. It's a nice town. So you live in Vancouver. That's cool. I didn't know. I see you in the chat and stuff. Nice to put the location to the people. I love that town, man. I miss Vancouver. I could live in Kitsilano, enjoy myself. Go for a nice walk on that beach every day. Albeit in the rain. Unit 67 is pretty awesome as a kind of a maybe always on or fun tone shaper, especially for cleaner sounds, I find. You could use it on leads and stuff too. Like if you use the Rangemaster style boost to kick the front end of an amp a little bit with it, it's pretty cool. But it's a great, it's got simple bass and treble controls and then a little bit of mid boost. And you can, just kind of maximize the sound coming out of your guitar with a bit of boost, a bit of compression, a little Rangemaster, dump the lows a little bit, and it just cuts a little more, then kicks the front end of the amp in a cool way. So, yeah, man. All right, what else? This fella did a quad cortex capture with a Fryette PS2 yesterday and worked fine. Yeah, you can use the line out on the Fryette to go back into the quad cortex, and it'll capture the direct amp. Yeah. What else we got here? Somebody's got a question about a Marshall MIG MG half stack. Is that what it is for $300? What's the question though? I'd be happy to answer if I can. Yeah. What else? Move back to the island, says Hip Metal Works. I never lived on the island, but my folks did. They lived on Vancouver Island for a minute. Stephen said, I think it was a great explanation. I hope you're talking about my convoluted explanation about the load boxes and stuff. I hope it made some sense. Yeah. Well, yeah, Brett Holman says blue balls. Not heard that about an amp before. Well, that's the way Sir described it to me one time about the, you know, an amplifier. Imagine your amplifier just building up a bunch of energy and it's got nowhere to go. You know, I mean, you watch the tube amp video I made about tube amp distortion and why I think it's better. You can hear the transformer buzzing away, the whines of the. Now imagine it doing that, but not dissipating any of that energy. You know, or not dissipating any of that energy, at least at certain frequencies, maybe super low frequencies, can be harmful. So, you know, at best, you know, if it doesn't go anywhere, you know, you blow a fuse, maybe the mains fuse, maybe the HT fuse on your amp, and that happens before anything gets damaged. Then there's various things that can happen, like where, you know, I guess arc tubes, or like take out a tube socket, or you know, the worst thing is obviously if it damages the output transformer of your amp. My fear is that on old vintage amps and stuff like that, also that you can abuse them for a while and the amp might not fry, you know, might not, you know, just catastrophically fail, but that it will over time be a cumulative thing, where you might end up in 3 or 4 years and go, why does my amp sound like shit now? You know, and you don't want to get into that either, because now it's like you had a great amp. And so all this is somewhat theoretical, but not really, you know. I mean, you know, we've seen it before, right? I mean, you play an amp with no load connected, what happens? I mean, probably plenty of you have, well, maybe not plenty, but some of you have had tube amps where you forgot to plug in the speaker cabinet and you're playing, go, what's wrong? And then it pops, right? I mean, either a fuse blows or worse, right? That's what happens, you know, sometimes. So we'll be back in the UK and playing a rock show again. Yeah. As soon as we can. You know, as soon as we can. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Usually only the bridge pickup. Here's another question. I would assume about 50 versus 53. Must have originally been a question about that. Usually only the bridge pickup is F spaced. That's correct. So the bridge will be 53 millimeters and the neck will be a standard humbucker spacing of 50 millimeters. If you put a 53 in the neck, it'll be kind of wide for the, you know, generally speaking. What do we got here? George, back to Eddie. Left channel amp dry, right channel goes to the reverb. Alternative solution for live sound if used micro pitch. That's sort of true. Like, but really the reverb exists in the right channel too. It might be panned a little bit, but his dry guitar was definitely panned left, but the reverb kind of is sort of across the whole thing. And you can hear this on certain tracks where he stops playing and it's not like it's just reverb in the right channel, you know. It's like you can kind of hear it across the whole thing. It's just that guitar is panned left, you know, the dry guitar part. So alternative solution for live sound if you use micro pitch, how much detune on left speaker and on right? You use +9 on one side and it's +9 on one side and -9 on the other side for the EVH thing. So that's the standard micro pitch thing. One side goes up 9 cents, the other side goes down 9 cents. Now you might tune that. You might think that sounds like too much or something. You can go +5, -5, +8, -8, whatever you can try different things with micro pitch and see what you prefer, and it'll be a little bit more or less apparent. Yeah. But plus on one side, minus on the other side is the main thing. Greenfly is asking about the Carlsber amps. I know of them, but I've never tried one. I was mentioning earlier, for those that have joined late, maybe there's a couple of amps that I'm going to see if I can maybe make an Amps in the Zone out of that are in Dave Friedman's shop for repair. And I was going to ask if maybe I could borrow for an afternoon to make a video, but it's an old Sound City that is like one of a really early Sound City, and also one of the earliest high watts I've ever seen. that's got 2 channels and I think it's a volume, bass, and treble for each channel. It's such a weird high watt, and I thought it might be fun to do a video with it and just see what we can do. Yeah. I've got a super chat here to get to too, and I'll do that in just a sec. Found the problem with my inner monitor sounding very thin was my old Shure wireless. Which one do you recommend? We have about 15 units going at a gig. I'd get a newer Shure wireless. They make great wireless now, but get a digital one, not an analog one. They're a whole nother world of sort of clarity. You just have to spend a little bit of time dialing them in so that they're completely unity gain. Like use a cable and then use with a relatively clean sound or just on the edge sound, and listen to your guitar sound, and then plug in the pack and the wireless and listen to the output and make sure you get them set the same. I don't know why my old AKG wireless was a little bit easier. You could try there's probably some other great digital wirelesses out there, but I like the Shures. I just find that they were a little more finicky as far as setting the levels right. But once you set them right, they're great. The AKG was good, but it's sort of outdated now, the one that I had. So long story short, you'll maybe look at Sennheisers and stuff too. But the new generation of digital wireless is what you want to use, and they sound, basically just like a cable. And they don't do any of that companding and expander on compression thing that you have to do with other wirelesses. Thank you guys for the super chats. I appreciate that. DKC, too kind. Thank you. And also Chris, you guys, come on now. That's my coffee for the next month. You guys are too kind. Andrew, what's up? Bass Breaker 30R, 4 EL 84s, and I love it. I bought a Keeley Elray Dorado drive pedal, but it's noisy. I want to get another drive pedal for some EVH tone. What do you recommend? I gotta say, the EVH pedal was great. Did you watch the video I did of that? It's a 5150 pedal. It's really good. That or the original, come on, think of it. BE pedal, BE Overdrive, the original one that Dave did. That's great too for EVH kind of stuff. The Plexitone, although it kind of depends on the amp, because I find the Plexitone likes darker amps. So if your amp has a bright cap, it might not work as well. But the Panama drive from Carl Martin, also really nice for I think it's called the Panama. I did a video of it. There's a bunch out there. Atomic Overdrive from XTS is pretty nice too, into a bright amp, opposite of the Plexitone. I did a video on that. Distortion boxes into amps with bright caps and without. I called it like how to and how not to use distortion pedals. I think I called it. It's a fairly popular YouTube video, but if you watch that one, you'll see me use the Plexitone and the Atomic Overdrive, and you can hear those. And then I've done videos for the Panama, the BE, and of course 2 videos for the 5150. So go check out all those to see which one you like the most. After the VH pickup shootout and your experience of using mini pickups and guitars over years, any advice to someone who wanted to start making pickups? Man, it's a crowded field out there. I feel like you have to do something that's, well, not necessarily different, but just, you can't do the same thing that what you can already get from Duncan or from, it's got to be a slightly, people seem to go different ways with it. Like either do like the ultimate antique PAF that's mismatched coils and whatever, rough cast magnets and whatever, like all the buzz stuff, and they age the covers and they try, what I'm talking about. They try and, and that's a tough market to get into because that already exists with kind of Throwback and the different, companies that get into that. So it's a good question. I guess Pariah went the route of like many, building pickups. Maybe they started as the EVH build kind of thing, but capturing the sort of Van Halen tone and coming up with, they called one pickup, Pasadena White. What you're getting. It's like they're going for that sound. And so maybe it's that, like winding pickups that try and capture a certain artist's tone, Oops, I already got to that one. That was John's super chat. There's another super chat here I'm looking for. Chris Lester. Oh, I was asking about my Amber Wolfgang. The Amber Wolfgang was I mean, it was right after I met Ed. I was talking to Ed and Matt about a Wolfgang, and getting one and stuff. And they got me one. They said, we got a guitar for you. And I went up to 5150 and picked it up. That's it. And I've used it ever since, on a bunch of stuff. I remember I recorded Perplexed with it on Guitar Nerd so many years ago now, 10 years ago. Wow. Right after I got it. And it's been a really neat guitar because it is that alternative kind of, basswood body and a Floyd and Alnico 2 hot pickups, and it was a different sound. So I'll use it for things I'll use it for kind of hot distorted tones and stuff like that. And things that I felt like my other guitars didn't do. But when I got it, I ended up taking it out and actually using it like with Melissa Etheridge I was playing with at the time, and I would use it with her. There's probably some TV shows out there and stuff where we're playing the song Fearless Love where I'm using that guitar, because I remember taking it on like some trips to New York City and stuff to go play on TV and stuff. And it was so jazzed to have it, and it came from Ed and Matt. And so that's it. But always thank them for that, I've got some cool pictures standing on the roof of 5150 with that guitar. Like I think maybe the day that I went to get, or maybe it wasn't the day that I went to pick it up, but it was another day. But like Matt was a really good photographer, and he took some photos of me with that guitar as well as a Frankenstein, and up there it's a good memory, Anyway, they were good to me, Ed and Matt. Yep. And that's the story. Let's see here. Yeah, Hollywood actress says, thanks for your advice. Yeah, I would just say you got to come up with something unique. Like maybe it's like the, pickups inspired by David Gilmour or something, like a certain era of sound. Or that's another thing that people seem to do. They wind pickups for a certain tone. Like, they get inspired by a recording or inspired by it. It's interesting. Like this fellow, this makes this Cornerstone pedal. He always tells me when he does a pedal, he's like, I was going for the, like the Gladio was like Robin Ford era from this album, or something. And then like with this pedal, he's like, I was really into the John Mayer trio, in particular, like I guess the live album, and so I was trying to make a pedal that kind of captured those tones. And so he gets into the era of an artist's tone and then makes a pedal. Well, I guess you could do that with pickups too, and that's kind of what I hear the Pariah folks doing with the Pasadena White, Pasadena Black, like the, more 9K PAFE or more overwound 14K hotter, so that's an interesting way to go at it, kind of a more niche targeted thing rather than making the ultimate PAF, or whatever, which has kind of been done, Please help me tame my 66 Super Reverb, always too loud for club use in the sweet spot, has original speakers. I would get a power station if I was you. It's a bit of an investment, but you could take the output of that Super Reverb. You'd have to use the 4 ohm setting on the power station, but you'd be able to then come out of the power station back into your Super Reverb's speakers, and you'd be able to turn it down to whatever volume you want. That's what you want, right? Tone King attenuator works pretty well too, the Iron Man series. But either of those would be okay, I would think. But the power station's fun. You can even maybe put some reverb, or you got reverb, super reverb, but maybe a nice delay or something in the loop of it and get some different sounds you haven't been able to get. You could foot switch a solo volume with the power station if you get the PS100. So at the 2 channels, you can have a lead boost, but at any volume you want. So, yeah. Steven says you talked to Matt Brookhoff, and could he come on your show? I haven't, not recently. There was a time where we talked more, but I think Matt is, he's half of EVH gear now with Wolf, and he's also helping out Wolf, I do believe, who's about to, embark on tour and do stuff. And Matt obviously probably had a really rough couple of years you know, being kind of Ed's right-hand man and stuff, and then with Ed, you know, falling so ill and everything. And the last time I talked to Matt, I just said, you know, I'm your friend and I'm here, and when you have time, let's get together and have a meal or something. And he said that time will come, you know, for sure. When, you know, and I think he, you know, I don't know what, we're not that, you know, I used to talk to him a little bit more years ago, but I don't know him that well, you know. So it's like I just tried to voice my support and say, you know, hope you're well, and I'm your pal, and I'm around if you ever want to chat, that kind of thing. And the last time I saw him would be, you know, a little bit just after Ed had passed away and stuff, and he was talking to Dave about getting some of his amps worked on and stuff, and he just seemed to want to be. He's like, yeah, I just want to play some. I remember him saying, I just want to play some guitar, kind of take my mind off things and stuff like that, and get into tinkering with his different amps. So he's really Matt Bruck's really into amps, and he has a lot of old, you know, cool amps and stuff like that, old Marshalls, like really like crazy cool stuff. Like, you know, he's got a big gear collection of his own, and he likes that stuff. So, anyways. Ben Coombe says going into lurk mode. I guess I've been going about 2 hours, so it's probably I'll hang for another 15 or so, as I always do, and then I'll split. Dave asks if I've tried a radial engineering cab link. Is that to switch multiple cabinets or something? I don't know if I've tried that particular one. I've only tried the amp switchers to go between like 2 different amps. So that particular unit I haven't, I don't think. What's the next rabbit hole project? You know, no rabbit hole project right now. Like I say, maybe an Amps in the Zone with these crazy, you know, if I can talk the owner into letting me use them for the afternoon. There's a Sound City and a High Watt I'd love to make an Amps in the Zone of and stuff. So that'd be next. And Friedman had an idea that we do a video on pot values and how that can affect the pickup sound. Like if you use a 250K with a humbucker or 300 or 500, that could be a quick, easy video we could make, you know, just picking like a standard kind of pickup, like a 57 Classic or something. Then we try 3 different pots, and that might be a neat video. But yeah, any new Sura models coming? Always. We're working on stuff. Got ideas. Yeah, they have some cool stuff in the works for sure. Some stuff coming actually very soon. Stay tuned. Finally got the Sura Reactive Load IR and used the output of that into a Line 6 Power Cab Plus, and it works quite well. That's cool. All this new gear, you can use it in unique ways. Power Station is one of the best investments in gear I've ever made. Yeah, it makes your stuff really usable. I mean, if you've got old amps that you haven't been able to use, you know, it makes them really usable. Supers are 2 ohm. That's true, but you can run a 2 ohm super into a 4 ohm load and you're fine. I said it here. I'll stand by it. It might sound a little different. Yeah, a little different than if it was, and you can hear the difference by just, you know, plugging into your super and then using the bypass switch on the power station, flip it in and out, you know, set the power station for 4 ohms on both sides, 4 ohms, and then it'll be going into the back into the, yeah. Well, that's the only thing, the output. The load is the super's 2 ohms cabinet. I think you're fine. I'm going to say I think you're fine. You could wire the speakers 4. This is above my pay grade. I would ask somebody like Friedman the best way, though, if I was going to use a power station with a super. It's 2 ohm. It's above my pay grade. I get lost, just like a lot of us do when it comes to ohmage and stuff. But the speakers would be wired, I guess, for 2 ohms as well. But maybe you could change that to be 4 ohms with a different kind of wiring. Is that right? Somebody help. What you might want to do. Or not. New John Mayer, 80s Clapton tone. I believe he used an SSLO on that song that is out now, which is pretty cool. This definitely has that. He kind of nailed that Clapton tone, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah. This question I don't understand. Is James Cameron, the legendary filmmaker? I'm sorry, I know you get that all the time. Do you find power conditioners suck tone versus plug into direct? I'm sorry, I need more info. A power conditioner I generally think of as a device like a Furman that is supposed to filter the AC line. So I don't think of it as a. Do you mean that? Like when you say power conditioner? Just not sure. Which one would you choose, Kemper or Quad Cortex? Don't ask me that. Honestly, I don't know. It just depends. Kemper guys are Kemper guys. Axe Effects guys are Axe Effects guys. Quad Cortex guys are Quad Cortex guys. It depends. There's so many. I need to come up with a detailed checklist of things that you could look at for, like, check off these boxes and it will tell you. We need to make an app. Which modeler should I choose? And it would give you a questionnaire of 10 questions, and you would select all the things, and then at the end it would tell you the right modeler for you is the Headrush or something, right? Wow, super chats coming in from John and Peter. Thank you guys. Thanks for hanging with us on your fellow guitar nerds. Rick Nielsen recently played Hamer 0001. That's really interesting. What's it look like? Ever played a vintage Hamer? I used to have a Hamer Chaparral. I wouldn't say it was vintage, but it was an 85 or something, it wasn't, mid 70s, but I love those original Hamer double cutaway, with the two humbuckers, and that's a cool guitar. That'd be a cool guitar to have. Just a basic rock and roll guitar, right? And I love the Hamer Explorers and stuff we saw Rick with over the years. Is so cool looking, So yeah. For the coffee fund and the Sweetwater link, recap on videos this week. Enjoy the week. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yes, I've got a Sweetwater affiliate link if anybody needs any guitar picks or SD cards. They probably sell those there. Guitar picks. Videos coming this week. Well, coming I think Tuesday. I'm going to put this one out. Cornerstone. This is the vintage classic drive. A great sounding take on a screamer that offers some tonal shaping via these switches. And then a new pedal that's being released. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it's a time-based thingy. And that's going to come tomorrow on my channel. So those two videos, Monday, Tuesday. And then by the end of the week, I should have some other ones done and coming out. I've got one for it's a Guitar World review I have to do for a product. It's an acoustic guitar, lower priced acoustic guitar. And one more thing. What was the other? Oh, yeah. Great pedal from RJM that I'm making a video for. It's a drive pedal that's programmable. Have you guys seen that? It's like a MIDI switchable, all analog, but digitally controlled drive pedal that screamers and clones and boosts and amp-like drives and everything in one pedal. So that's kind of cool. There's not very many of those out there that are like that. So that's going to come this week too. So a lot of videos, I think, maybe this week. It'll be 3, if not 4, this week. Yeah. So there's that. And a couple more questions, then I'm going to split. Any luck getting Kim Mitchell on with you? I've been talking to Kim occasionally, like over text. He's a great guy. He's fun. He's still so into amps and stuff. And I'm actually have a PT15 on order for him. So excited to get him a PT15 to check out and stuff, because he's a great guy. But yeah, I don't know. I should ask him again if he'll come on a Sunday. I haven't hit him up about that. I've been somewhat lax about that, making videos and stuff, doing other things and getting guests lined up. So sorry about that. But you're reminding me to remember to do that. I saw Paul Stanley's weird Hamer Explorer thing with the hooked horn. I don't know that guitar. Weird little back cut. I don't remember that. EMG pickups, made in 79-ish, used it in 80, 81. Don't remember that guitar. That's cool though. Yeah. I always wanted a Hamer Californian Elite. Kind of cool guitars. Mine was a Chaparral Californian. I know that's the guitar that had a bolt-on neck, right? Bolt-on neck with a hockey stick headstock, and kind of like the Chaparral, but it was a 25.5 scale, as opposed to the Chaparral's was a Gibson scale with 24 frets, I do believe, right? And I had one. I didn't really bond with that guitar, but it was kind of cool looking, and it was pink, like fuchsia. Couldn't get more 80s than that guitar. Yeah. Fender output transformers are typically much more robust than Marshalls, which need their impedances matched closely. Yeah, I think that's largely true. Fenders seem to handle the mismatches well, although a Marshall going up seems fine. Like, you know, you can set your Marshall at 8 and run into a 16 ohm cab, and if the amp blows up, it's got to be some other, you know, I don't think it's a problem. But if you go the other way, I would worry, you know. Yeah, the Marshall, and I think you're, from what I can gather, the Fenders do seem much more robust, generally speaking. Old Fender Basemans and stuff, you know, generally speaking. Do you know how to get rid of ice pick frequencies in recorded acoustic guitar, trying to achieve warmer tones like Page, Cornell? Well, I mean, first of all, the mic choice is kind of important. If you want a warmer acoustic sound that's more like, let's say, Beatles, you know, would be the start for me. Like large diaphragm tube mics tend to do that really well. They're a little slower on the attack. They're a little less ice picky and aggressively fast, you know, and the tone of them tends to be a little rounder, you know. So like a U47 was, you know, used to see in Beatles photographs all the time. So a lot of those acoustic sounds, I would say, you know, probably done through like, I mean, probably like tube consoles and, you know, those mics, and add a little bit of compression, and before you know it, it's just soft as can be, you know. So look at the microphone choice and maybe consider some sort of, you know, 47 or 67 style tube mic. And then EQ wise, you know, you can kind of look at, like, you can go through and kind of narrow boost a frequency in an EQ. Like if you record in Logic or whatever, grab an EQ and just boost up a frequency and do it kind of narrow like the band, and then just scoot it around, you know, and listen somewhere between 1K all the way up to 5K, you know, and you'll probably find a frequency in there that just sounds like, and then you just do a little dip at that frequency. So that's one way to kind of achieve it with EQ, you know. But if you can get it at the mic, that's cool. And, you know, if you can mic your guitar, generally speaking, not, I mean, you're going to find the different, you just move around in front of the sound hole, but I find it's too boomy to be right in, especially with a large diaphragm mic, to be right in front of the sound hole. But go towards the neck a little bit, and, you know, so the mic's maybe yay far from the guitar, you know. You can experiment with moving back closer, you know, and then like just move back and forth in front of the microphone. So if this is the guitar body, you know, it's like, you know, move so that you're more towards the neck, more towards the body, and find that where it's not too boomy in the headphones if you're your own engineer, and where it's not too thin either. And you find that, and I usually find I like to put the mic in front of the guitar right about where the neck meets the body. That's where I tend to mic acoustics, and that works pretty well for me. Yeah. +1 vote for a show with Dave about impedance matching implications. You know, honestly, I mean, he's going to tell you the same thing I am right now. And thanks, Michael, for the super chat. But it's that one-way mismatch on a Marshall that kind of works. I mean, okay, Eddie Van Halen, when he used to use a load box, certainly like around 84 and stuff, it was a resistive load, but it was, I think, a 20 ohm load, 16 or 20 ohm load resistor with the amp set at 8. And he used to like that, and it's got a certain sound to it that is pretty cool. It's a different kind of sound, but it's a you know, it's a little brighter and clearer than a resistive load that would be like if you set the amp at 16 and use a 16 ohm load resistor. If you set the amp at 8 and use a 20 ohm, it's got a more open top end. That I don't know why that is, but some amp tech can probably explain it. But it's a cool sound, and you can run your amp like that safely, I think, you know. So. You know, beyond that, yeah. Any super chats I missed? I don't think so. I got all you got. You guys are too kind. Thanks for all the super chats. How about Paul Gilbert as a guest? I would love to have Paul Gilbert as a guest someday. He's a fun dude. That would be awesome. I could contact him and ask him if he would be interested in that. He's a super cool dude. With a good coffee bean, nothing else needs to be added. Did you find one? I've got a coffee bean that I like quite a bit, but I can't remember what it's called right now. I need to look. It's something I've been buying from Whole Foods, and they're roasted in LA, and it's I can't remember the name of the company right now. I do like the Intelligentsia El Diablo. It's pretty good. That's one that comes to mind that I like. They call it a dark roast. I would call it a kind of a medium dark roast, but for them, dark is, when you see those beans that Italian roast beans, they're super oily and all that. This isn't that. It's definitely a darker bean, but it's not dark roast like we think about some dark roasts. So, but anyway, that's a nice one. John up there in the super chat. My super chat. How did EVH break the ice with you when you first met? It's a funny story, but like I got out of my car and he came walking out from his garage and he looked at me and I was a little starstruck because there he is. And he looked at me and he goes, "So which one do I look at?" Which I just laugh like I just did right now. Because what do you even say to that? Now, you might take that as offensive if you were, a certain type of guy or whatever, but I just thought it was really funny. And it sort of set the tone for me understanding him a little bit further, which is that he doesn't mean that as a mean thing. He was just, and as he said, he then clapped me on the shoulder. He goes, "Well, I didn't mean anything by it. I was just trying to get it out of the way." One thing Ed really liked to do was look you in the eye. Anybody that knows him, that knew him, would say that, that he was very into. He wanted to know that he could look. He wanted to trust people, I think, and he also had very little filter, I think, and yet he was really, really, really intelligent. So that was just his. There was not a lot of BS with the guy or any kind of if he felt something, he said it, and which I kind of always appreciated about him. But that's what he said to me for the first time. And when he said that, it spawned a whole conversation then about health and his health challenges and things, and which is a whole other long story. But I've probably told it before. But it definitely broke the ice, and then it made me really I found it really endearing. And I remember when I left, I was like, well, I didn't know what this was going to be like, and I certainly didn't think it was going to be like that right out of the gate. It was really funny. That's as good as you could hope for, says Chris. Yeah, it was really funny and really endearing, and and honestly, it kind of right away, I don't know, I just really liked him. It was cool. It was funny, man. Oh man. Anyways, love that video of Ed looking into the camera and saying, "Keep playing." Yeah, that was that's an effing great story. I agree. It's a funny story, And that day was a dream, man. I mean, that first time, because then we hung out for a little bit, and then we went up to the studio, and it was like this mind blowing day that feels, that was like a dream. As when I was a kid, if you'd told me, that this would happen, But he gave me a tour of the studio and all that, and then we went up and listened to music and stuff, and it was just like the coolest thing ever. So really, really cool. Great dude. Love that dude. Anyways, on that note, should probably split. Get some work done. I got videos to make. So you guys, thanks so much for all the super chats, and thanks for everything. You're the best. I'll see you all next week. I'll be here. Lots of videos. Oh, okay. One thing. Next week, it's I got a birthday coming up, so I think I'm gonna do the show, but later in the day next week, just because I'm gonna take a few days off towards the end of the week. I'm gonna knock out all these videos, starting from today till midweek. Then I'm taking a few days off for my birthday, and I think I'll be returning that morning. So I don't think I can be back here in time, because I kind of just want to have a chill morning that morning anyway, and just because it's kind of going to be the end of my birthday extravaganza. And so I will put up a watch page, but it'll probably be for later in the day, like maybe a 4 p.m., 5 p.m., or evening 6 p.m. thing next Sunday. I'll do it, but it'll be a little bit later in the day. I'll be here, and just for the 1 week, just so I can have a little downtime. So yeah, the watch page will say, whatever, live, whatever, not at the time, PST, so you'll know. Thanks again. Love y'all. And happy Father's Day to your dads out there, to you dads, and to all the dads, and to those with dads, and to those without dads. Happy Father's Day. Take care.